What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. My name's Jimmy McGill, and you are watching the Recovery Clinic. This is one of Arkansas's many efforts to combat the opioid epidemic. It is one of our efforts and initiatives to save the lives of people who battle with mental health and drug addiction. And so if you are a person struggling, or if you have a family member, then this is probably the show for you to tune in and watch. If you haven't already hit the like button and went and followed this page, please do so now. It may save the life of somebody you know. Share the videos and invite your friends to come watch. My name is Jimmy McGill, and despite 23 years of an IV drug addiction, I found a way to live a normal, successful life through a process of recovery. And so today, I take my past, my pain, and I give it purpose and I give it passion by bringing a message of hope to all of you watching. We've got an exciting show today. A good friend of mine, swagged out. We were just talking about how Tucker Martin at 52 is still got more swag than most of these youngsters. Tuck, welcome to the show, man.
I really am grateful for the invitation. It's exciting to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you here. And Tucker is, and what's the exact title?
I am the Director of Market Development at the Serenity Park Recovery Center.
Now, if you don't know about Serenity Park, you will by the end of this show. Serenity Park has played a huge part really in making Arkansas known for having one of the most famous recovery communities in the nation. So talk to us a little bit, Tucker, about who Tucker Martin is, right? Like, you don't work in treatment and recovery. If you're watching, you don't do what we do without having a steering wheel pointing you in that direction.
Right.
What's your motivation for working in the field?
You know, in the simplest terms, I'm just a guy who abused drugs and alcohol for years and years and years, and in spite of myself, I was led to a path of recovery.
Yeah.
And now I get to live a life of joy, you know, and that's really defined for me as being glad or happy regardless of my circumstances.
Yeah. So what did that life of alcoholism and addiction look like? How did that start? Well,
in the mental health field, we talk a lot about adverse childhood experiences. We call them ACEs.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So that's the beginning bookend of what my story is all about. And it centers around the death of my father when I was 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was told the worst thing that you could possibly be told at 7 when your father died. And that was basically, you're the man of the house now.
Wow.
I had no idea what that meant.
Well, talk about some burdens and a weight on your shoulders.
And that really defined my life from that moment on.
Yeah.
I had no idea what that responsibility meant or looked like. That was in the 70s, and there was no, in the town that I grew up in, there's no really, at that point, no mental health services. There were no counselors, there were no therapists to work with. So I struggled with trying to figure out what that meant to me, and it became just an extraordinary burden that led to an enormous amount of stress and anxiety, and that made me rebel against. I was trapped in that 7-year-old emotional state. My response to all of that was to run away from it. That manifested itself in my behavior, and then when I was a teenager and found drugs and alcohol, that was my escape hatch.
Yeah.
I could finally not feel the way I felt, which was miserable, constantly, just wretched in misery constantly. And it's no fault of anybody's. You know, I had a family that loved me, and I had, you know, friends and a church family that were supportive, but we just didn't talk about stuff like that when I was a kid.
Yeah. So how old were you when you had that first drink?
Probably 14. And,
young age.
Yeah, pretty young.
Yeah.
And like most people, I did what teenagers in the South that grew up on MTV, we partied and hung out. And
man, I miss MTV.
yeah.
It's not the same as it used to be.
Really,
it played
really
music
isn't.
Videos all day long.
Right. Yeah, those were what we call the good old days.
Yeah, I saw a video, Tuck, of high school footage. I guess, you know, the cameras, back then they had the old school camcorders with the tapes that went in them. It wasn't
Oh, yeah.
digital, and you know, this video, they call it Gen X, and so it's footage of like when you and I were in high school.
Right.
You know what I mean? They had the big hair and the punk rock bands were going, and life was so different.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what we did. We partied. They called us stoners, and
Right.
yeah, I remember.
For me, it
those.
was parachute pants and black Trans Ams.
Yes, old school, like the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am.
Yeah.
Yes,
I didn't own one. I had a Camaro, but
Yeah, that is awesome.
you know, when I got into my 30s, I fell into the thing that so many people talk about. I had an injury and went to the doctor.
You did.
Yeah, and was prescribed opioid painkillers, and that was magic for me. All of a sudden,
Had you ever done an opiate before?
no, not really up to that point, but something clicked, and I was hooked from the word go. I really was.
So so primarily you suffered from alcoholism until that point.
Until that point, right.
So what did the drug use look like in other areas? Had you experienced with other
Oh yeah, you
drugs
grow up in the
around?
80s, you smoke weed and do cocaine and what everybody else did, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't to the extent that the opiates took you to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got hurt in your 30s, got a prescription, and it was off to the races. We're swinging for the fences.
Yeah, it was, and I kept it all hidden from everybody around me. I had my own little mechanisms to secure the supply of drugs that I felt like I needed. I had a professional career and a job that provided a paycheck where I could live the lifestyle I wanted and afford a pretty significant drug habit and still have money to go on vacation.
That's nice.
But that's not sustainable. You know, you just can't do that forever.
Right.
So when the weight of it all came down on me,
Came hard.
it came really hard, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about any of this. I didn't know what treatment was. I didn't know what recovery looked like. The only thing that I knew, this is so bizarre, because I am very much an 80s hair metal product, right?
Still got good hair.
Oh, thank you.
That's why I was late this morning. I couldn't find my brush. So.
I had read, Nikki Sixx wrote a book called The Heroin Diaries about
Yes, he did.
his struggle with addiction. And I remember vividly some passages in there where when he was trying to kick it, he went to a methadone clinic. So I was dope sick. I remember this vividly like it was yesterday. It was a Thursday morning. I was dope sick, and that's, if you don't know what that's like, it's the flu times about 1,000,000.
Right.
And I called the people that I worked for and said that I was sick and wouldn't be in that day. Googled, and there was a methadone clinic in Birmingham, Alabama, where I lived, and I went. But you know, the bad part of that for my journey is that I didn't take advantage of any of the therapeutic counseling options that they provided. I went and stood in my line every morning, took my dose of methadone, and went about my day. I hid it from everybody for a long time. But I followed the process and titrated down, stepped down. But as I did that, because I didn't have any support, I didn't know what was going on with me.
Yeah.
As I decreased the amount of methadone I was taking, my alcohol intake increased significantly.
Yeah.
So in 2013, I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, but I did that geographical change that we all talk about.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big part of people's recovery journey.
And for those of you who don't know what Tucker's talking about, if you're viewing or if you come back and view, the geographic change is when we're trying all this stuff to quit using. And so we decide we're going to move. That'll fix it all. And
change my environment, and that is the answer to all my problems.
Okay.
So at 45, I basically retired, moved to Greers Ferry Lake, and spent the next 2 years basically drinking myself to death. So when I went to treatment, I had people in my life that cared enough about me to get me into a treatment center in 2015. I was there for acute alcohol use disorder.
Right. Well, and that was 20 what?
2015. My sobriety date is October 11th, 2015.
Well, congratulations on that. You know,
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome. So this coming up October, we'll celebrate 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, so that is freaking amazing, Tucker. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
Did you get yourself anything nice for your 5-year recovery? Uh-oh, must have.
I did. I had been wanting a new vehicle, and I bought a vehicle from Carvana, and it was really a great experience. Matt Brooks, who works with us on our admissions team at Serenity Park, drove me to Memphis, and I got to put the big coin in the Carvana vending machine, and my car spun out and came down, and they drove it out for me and all that stuff. Yeah.
That is very interesting to hear it described like that.
You know,
you put the coin in and it rotates your car like a Coke machine.
It really, yeah, that's exactly what it was.
That is awesome.
You know, 5 years prior to that, I was never good at the pedestrian things in life, so I was too busy getting high and drunk, so when it came time to renew my driver's license, I didn't go.
Yeah, so, you know, I celebrated 6 years recovery.
Yeah.
And so I just, 6 years into my recovery, just got my first new car yesterday.
I love it, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, people, I see a lot of people that don't do what you and I did. They don't wait until they're financially stable to buy that. Not just did we blow all of our money trying to get and find a way and a means to use whatever changed the way we felt, we neglected ourselves with responsibility. And so for me personally, I had an inability to accept my personal responsibility.
Right, yeah.
And so basically the creation of all my flaws started with me. And so managing money and being responsible, that was as foreign as living sober was.
Yeah.
And so I would see people get new cars, and here I am, I spend every day of my life, a lot like you, Tucker, helping people. And I'm like, man, I'm driving the hoop-to-loop, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm rocking it like a champ. You think I was Ricky Williams or something, playing for the Razorbacks the way I was riding that car. You know?
Well, I want to brag on you for a minute. A lot of people may not know this. When Jimmy says he spends his life helping people in recovery, he really does that. A week ago, Grant Lee and your wife Chelsea were the guests on this show.
Yeah.
So you did the show last Wednesday, and then you worked a full day because you have a job.
Yeah.
And I called Jimmy at 4 o'clock because we have a speaker, a recovery speaker, come in every Wednesday evening and talk to the guests that we have in our facility. And the person that we had scheduled wasn't going to be able to make it. My go-to phone call was you, and without hesitation, you said,
Yeah.
the responsible thing, which is let me check with my wife,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I had to clear
And
it.
then you texted me back and said I'll be there, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
That is just
Man, I
selfless
enjoyed
act,
it.
and
Thank you.
And our people really enjoyed hearing what you had to say. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I noticed you got some guys that, you know, they look like the caliber of crowd that I was once with. You know what I mean? Like. And it's the same thing with my sponsorship tree. People tell me all the time, Jimmy, why all your sponsees look like a gang? You know, they're the ones with face tattoos, knuckleheads, can't keep their head out of their butt, like, and I love them.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think my sole purpose in life is to walk with the newcomer addict through addiction and through the recovery process. Like, that's where I am at that's where I'm at, you know.
And that's so important for the newcomer, because the thing that I really gravitated towards when I first got into recovery, and I see it every day, it's hope. You have a message of hope.
For sure. Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
We all do. So let's talk a little bit now that we know what led you to this, and we got a little bit of Tucker Martin's backstory, which you got some fans on here, by the way, Tuck. I saw somebody saying how much they love Tucker, and
Oh my goodness.
yeah, we'll have to go back through there in a little bit. So what is it you do at Serenity Park? And then let's talk a little bit about this rich history that is associated with Serenity Park and why it's so special to Little Rock, Arkansas.
Well, I joined the Serenity Park team on the 17th of February in 2020 as Director of Market Development and part of the senior leadership staff. I'm so grateful to be able to work in a field where I get to help people every day. But the majority of what my job looks like is being able to talk to the community about what Serenity Park is, what we believe, what we do, and create a clear avenue for people who are seeking treatment to be able to engage in that admissions process with us. You know, every organization has a mission, and we're real clear about what our mission is at Serenity Park. But part of what I do is work with our team to really set the vision for what the future of our company is.
Yeah, yeah. That's good stuff, man. So talk to me about Serenity Park. Why is it and the history that we've got with it?
You know, when you say history, it's really legacy almost.
It is, yeah, for sure.
Serenity Park was started in 1990 by Joe McQueen. He was a legendary figure in the recovery community.
All over the world.
Yes, literally all over the world. That's probably the most amazing part of my job. Joe died on October 25th of 2007, long before I got sober. But I get to engage with people on a weekly basis who tell me amazing stories about their experiences with Joe.
Yeah.
There's never been a man more passionate about treatment and recovery, I don't think, in this state than Joe McQueen was.
Yeah, for sure.
And after he passed away, through a series of circumstances, Serenity Park wound up closing in 2013. At the end of 2018, Tara Tenen and some other people were instrumental in, Tara bought the property and we reopened. And we really wanted to honor what Joe's legacy was. So we kept the name Serenity Park. There's a picture of Joe hanging in the large group room, and we talk about him constantly, and we really try to honor what his original mission and vision was. But we're also trying to do that in the modern era of what treatment and recovery looks like in 2021.
Yeah, that's good. So,
and one of those people I really want to mention that was instrumental in that process of reopening Serenity Park was a man named John Novelli. And this week is basically the 1-year anniversary of his passing. I just want to say to Lauren, his daughter, we love you so much, and we miss John terribly. And for everybody that knew John, he was a powerful force in the treatment and the recovery field. And we actually have a scholarship in his honor, the John Novelli Scholarship, that we scholarship probably more people into treatment than any other facility in the state of Arkansas, I would imagine. And it's the John Novelli Scholarship that lets people come in that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to find treatment and recovery.
Yeah, so that's big, because I've literally called George Weaver.
Yeah.
And there has been more than one time that I've called George and said, hey man, listen, this guy is in this moment of desperation, like he's crying, like I think he's pretty authentic, and he doesn't have insurance or money. George doesn't say anything other than, let me make a phone call.
Right.
And so it's really cool, because I don't run into those situations a lot. But I do. And so the fact that when I've called George at Serenity Park, you guys have scholarship though. So I know that's the truth. And so for you guys watching here on the Recovery Clinic, we get into the good, the bad, and the sticky, the iffy, and sometimes the slippery slopes. And so what I want to talk to you about now is a real touchy subject on both sides.
Oh, okay.
And so it's something that the recovery community gives some pushback towards. It's something that this community gives pushback towards. It's something that some embrace, some question. And so that's MAT, right? Medically assisted treatment, right? And so there's a lot of treatment providers in the state of Arkansas who have embraced MAT, but not Serenity Park.
Correct.
Okay. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we believe is that all of this works well when there are options in the marketplace. I talk about this constantly. When you have the core of a treatment center that's based on evidence-based treatment practices and what the standard is, everything beyond that is in between an individual who's seeking treatment services and a provider, all of that is a retail experience. That's a retail exchange, right? There's an immediate need and there's a facility that has the ability to provide an immediate solution. And the more options there are in the marketplace, the better the consumer, the person seeking treatment services, the better they're going to be served. We fully recognize that there are a lot of facilities eager and able to provide MAT services. We feel it's important for us to position ourselves as an alternative to that because in response to what
doesn't want it, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot like the show last week with Chelsea and Grant from Incura. NAD is a different tool in the toolbox. And
yes,
so now,
absolutely.
Okay, so see, I think there's a misconception that Serenity Park doesn't embrace it because they don't agree with it. But you guys just want to meet people where they're at. And so if I don't want to take Subutex or Suboxone, then I can go to a treatment center that doesn't offer that.
Right. And the reality of it is we get phone calls literally every day, people wanting to detox off of Subutex and Suboxone.
Yeah.
We fully recognize that there's an enormous amount of evidence that proves that process of medication is successful and it saves lives. And we agree with it. That's just not what we offer.
Right. Right. Yeah. MAT is kind of like a seatbelt. It increases your chance of surviving.
It really does. Yeah.
But I do know people that have been on MAT for 6-7 years, and I'm like, man, that's kind of rough because at the end of the day, if I don't have a strip and I can't get to a clinic or the doctor's office is open, and we're not trying to change those core behaviors. Addiction is so much more than getting high. Addiction is about behavior patterns. Right. And so here I am. I haven't committed a crime in 5 years, 6 years, whatever you want to say, but I can't get to the clinic to get my dose, and so now I'm getting sick, and so I've got, what do? Do I stay sick all night, or do I go commit a crime and get something that'll change the way I feel? And so that's a lot of the big pushback people also get.
Sure.
And so
now I want to qualify all that by saying that we do employ medication-assisted treatment in the detox process. We're going to step you down, though, hopefully before we get to the point of residential care. Sometimes, if it's an extreme case, we'll titrate an individual down over the course of their residential stay.
Well, that's good. That's a step-down process, and that's the way it was meant to be. It was meant to get me through detox, and then to get me into housing and surrounded with peer support, an inconclusive, holistic approach of recovery.
And that really is what Serenity Park is all about. We want to create an environment for people to be able to embrace and engage in very successful, long-term, sustainable recovery. We fully recognize that what we do, we're trying to stay in our lane, right? What we do is provide detox, subacute detox services and residential treatment. That's the beginning of a process, right? We're not an outpatient provider, but we partner with virtually everybody in the metro area who is an outpatient provider. We have a discharge planner on our team named Josh Foster.
Yeah, I know Josh.
Josh, and that is his sole responsibility.
He's a shaker and a mover, man.
He is, yeah.
Every time I look
so
up,
happy to have him.
It used to be I'd look up and I'd see you. Now I look up and I see you and Josh. I'm like, oh, they're Twinkies. He's like a younger version of you. He's tall, swagged out. That's good.
He's way more hip than I am.
Yeah. Well, they say we lose it. My son tells me all the time I'm not cool anymore.
But his sole function in our organization is to partner with a guest as they come into our facility and begin to customize a continuing care plan for that individual, right? There are treatment centers that want to control the entire process from front door to back door, and
that's not recovery, though.
Well, offering a full continuum of care, there's a lot of value in that. Again, we're trying to position ourselves with an alternative in the marketplace.
No,
right?
I love it, but when you say they want to control the plan, that means them making my plan for me.
Right.
And nobody's going to drive Jimmy's life but Jimmy.
Exactly, I know.
That's one of the most important elements of peer support is shared decision making.
Right.
I'm not going to talk about you without you being in the room. I'm not going to discuss what's going on without you being right there leading me and telling me talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, we're not even going to dive into that. You are going to be the key component of making your recovery plan across the continuum.
Right.
And so it's cool to see a treatment center embracing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of them don't. A lot of them, this is 2021, man. The year of treatment plans is over. We're looking at recovery processes.
Yes,
at this point.
exactly right. There are some components to that process that we know work well, that we strongly encourage our guests to embrace and engage in after they discharge from residential care. It's the stuff that worked for me. It's the stuff that worked for you. Intensive outpatient services.
Yeah.
We want to plug them into that. We want those appointments set before they discharge. Every study ever done about substance abuse treatment says the longer a person is engaged in the treatment process, the more likely they are to be successful.
Yeah.
That's true. We all know it's true.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to extend that 30 or 60-day residential treatment episode beyond that time frame into an intensive outpatient or outpatient environment. One of the other things that we know works well is having a safe, sober living environment.
Key. It is one of the
Essential.
most vital things.
Absolutely.
Like, if you look at the people who have long-term recovery, long-term sobriety, the majority of them went straight from a treatment center into long-term recovery housing.
Yeah. For me, in my personal story, that my sober living facility was my sister and brother-in-law's house.
Yeah.
Without Patty and her husband, Doug, I really don't think I could have made it, right? They provided a safe and secure, supportive environment for me to kind of figure my life out, because I was literally starting over.
Yeah. I stayed in my Kim-free house for 13 months.
Yeah, 3 years and 3 months for me.
Golly,
as a grown man living in my sister's house,
but you needed that accountability.
I did, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm so grateful for them that their love and support.
Look at you now, a little bird that flew out the nest by itself.
I guess I love it. Yeah.
Me too, man.
One more part of what we know works well that we encourage people to do, and that is to work with a licensed mental health professional and engage in that process of therapy.
Yeah, for sure.
That's back at the beginning of what we were talking about, my ACE, my adverse childhood experience.
Wow.
I didn't just have an epiphany that was what was wrong.
Yes.
That revelation came from one-on-one work with a therapist.
Yeah,
I dug down to the core of that thing that essentially drove my destructive substance use patterns.
No, absolutely right. See, recovery doesn't fix everything. Like, sometimes we have issues that we have to work through.
Right.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with a good therapist. There's nothing wrong with a good counselor. Like, my wife and I will use, that's the cool part, right? Like, she works with them all the time, so I can just walk in there and I can get some therapists.
I know,
anytime I need it. She's got one of her closest friends, Alyssa, and I love it, man. So
we partner really closely. There are a lot of people that we have outbound referrals for mental health, but Kelly McCoy and his team at Argenta Counseling, they've got 3 locations and just an extraordinary clinical experience for our people.
That's good.
We're really grateful to them.
So what's the future look like for Serenity Park?
We've got some exciting things on the horizon. This is the 31st of March, the last day of March. A year ago, we were in a different kind of March Madness, right?
Yeah.
We were just beginning to realize the extent of this public health emergency So we really dug deep to focus on keeping our client base and our staff safe in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
We were successful, I think, in doing that. We didn't have a single client-based case of COVID, and still haven't. But that put the brakes on a lot of plans that we had.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I wanted to do when I joined the team in February of 2020 was host an event that really built a bridge between the original Joe McQueen iteration of Serenity Park and what we're doing now, and that was going to be basically an alumni event. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in this city, in the state, and all across the country.
Oh, you
who
mean
went
from
to
the original?
the original,
and the new.
original, right?
Oh,
We
well,
were-
you need a football field for that.
Well, we've got a pretty big campus.
Yeah, that's
so
huge.
we had to call off those plans because of the pandemic. But I think now that we're in a position where we can have that event again, we've set the date for it. This is the first time we've talked publicly about it, but it's going to be on the 12th of June.
Okay,
This
12th of
year.
June.
We'll be sending more information out about it on our social media platforms.
Love it.
But people that have a history with Serenity Park, they can come back and we're also going to talk about kind of what the future plans for our campus are.
Yeah.
We've been working with, we had a meeting yesterday afternoon, as a matter of fact, to go over the architectural plans. The original building on the Serenity Park
Yeah.
campus, we're about to completely renovate that, and in sometime in 2022, we're going to open a 20-bed residential facility there for women.
Much needed.
Yeah.
Much
and we're going to
needed.
have a not quite a freestanding detox center, but pretty
Yeah.
close to it. So
Well, that is freaking awesome.
I'm so excited about it.
You know, one of my favorite things, Tucker, about Serenity Park, and it's still there from the original one.
Yes.
It's right beside the county jail, and it's right across from a cemetery. And so you guys have got this sign, and you got an arrow pointing at the county jail, an arrow pointing at the cemetery, and an arrow pointing to the rehab. And one says, locked up, covered up, sobered up. And I'm like, that is the sole message of recovery. So if you're watching this, I need you to understand, addiction is going to take you to one of three places: insanity, institutions, or death. So everybody will quit using drugs one way or another. You're either going to live out one of those three guarantees, or you're going to get sober and you're going to find a new way to live on your own. But one of those things are going to happen.
Inevitably.
Inevitably. And so the fact that the raw truth of the message is you can either come here and find a new way to live, you can go over here where you ain't got no say, you can't get high in Pulaski County Jail, they're going to lock you down.
Yeah.
It's ugly. Or you can die from the disease of addiction and you can be buried in that cemetery.
Right.
That's a painful truth, man.
Yeah. That's the reality there.
I wonder, is there a specific reason, like did you guys look at that sign and say, there's no way we're taking that down?
We knew the history of it.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, when we bought the property, and that's part of you know, we have people on our staff that worked for Joe McQueen at the original Serenity Park. We have people on our staff who went to treatment in the Joe McQueen Serenity Park and now are part of our team. So we understood what the value of keeping that sign was, and that's you know, when I mentioned earlier that I talked to people about their experiences with Joe. I almost feel like I know him from all of these conversations that I've had, and I've never had a conversation about Joe McQueen where the individual I was talking to didn't mention that sign, locked up, covered up, or sobered up.
You know what, Tucker? I have heard, and I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me on it, but I've heard it since before I got clean. They said that when Joe passed away, that they viewed the body for days, that people came from everywhere, that there were so many people that the body stayed on view for like more than multiple days.
That's a testament to the reach that Joe had all across the world.
Yeah, and that's the legacy I want to leave. I want to not just with recovery, but I'm a spiritual person, and so staying clean and staying sober and having that active change in my thoughts and ideas, that's the life change I need. But for me, it's about God too, right?
That's
like
right.
I'm trying to make as many people that I can meet know that God is the reason that Jimmy McGill is no longer in prison. If not for his plans and his divine intervention, and for me to be a tool for his kingdom, that I would be in prison or dead with a syringe in my arm.
Right.
And that's the type of legacy Joe left, man. I
Yeah.
want to know before my casket drops that on that day I've led 1,000 people to God.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or opened that door, or planted that seed for him to water. And
there's no pride or ego in that at all. That is a privilege,
Yeah,
to be
for
able
sure.
to serve people in that way. And I know that about
Yeah.
you, and I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for that passion that you have.
Yeah, for sure. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I get lost in the feeling of being in the spotlight, and sometimes if it's a big environment, a big speaking engagement, like I may get lost and just overwhelmed with joy and all the attention, but for a long time I did a lot of bad things, and I know that I will spend the rest of my life making that right.
Part of what I've learned in my recovery journey is that things like that, because I experienced that too, that's okay when I let that pride and ego. It's the balance, right? We have to
Right.
maintain balance in recovery. So
Yeah.
none of the things that we think or feel are inherently bad. It's when they get out of balance with the rest of our lives
Yeah.
and overshadow
Yeah.
what our recovery is all about. That's when
Yeah.
it becomes dangerous. And I've never seen you cross that line ever.
Yeah, so I agree. I think there's a big difference between excessive pride, unhealthy pride, and just being a proud person, right? Like,
Right.
I don't see anything really wrong with having pride. Like, I'm a proud father. I'm a proud state employee. I'm proud that I'm a person of recovery.
Yeah.
But it's when our arrogance kicks in, and those normal behavior traits get inflated,
Right.
right? And they become challenging behaviors at that point. And so that's all the stuff I've learned, man. So talk to me, Tuck, about the public outreach team that you're on.
Well, that really is an extraordinary thing. It's kind of unique to the Central Arkansas area. We call it the Public Outreach Leadership Team. It was started by a man named Doug Collins, and Shannon Mulkern was involved in it, and some other people. The original intent was to create an environment to better connect the 12-step message with treatment centers, how to let those two things intersect with one another. When I joined the team at the organization that I worked at prior to Serenity Park, I was invited to be a part of that group. And there was some explosive growth that happened. We went from 12 people sitting around a table to 30 people in a room. And it was all people from the treatment facilities in the metro area. And at one point in time, we looked around and said, look, whenever do we have key people from all of the treatment providers in the same place? We need to take advantage of that. So our mission kind of adapted and changed, and Doug Collins stepped away from it, and he asked me to take over as all I am is the facilitator, and I'm grateful to be able to serve in that capacity. But we're committed to creating an environment to have a good dialogue between providers, to give us the opportunity to collaborate with one another, to really lock down good, solid communication between our facilities.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's before we said it in that meeting. I don't know that it had ever been said out loud before at least in the metro area. The providers that provide treatment services in this state, we're not in competition with one another. We're absolutely not. And there was a sense of that several years ago. There are unfortunately, there's a never-ending stream of people who need treatment and recovery services. And the best way to serve all of those people is for all of the treatment providers to collaborate with one another, to support one another. The person needing help, the person that needs their life saved is the one that benefits from that.
Yeah.
So if you're watching and you're in the treatment business outside of the metro area in Little Rock, if you're in another state, I encourage you to start a group of like that of your own. It is extraordinary. Jimmy's been a part of it for quite a long time now.
Been a while.
Director Lane is an active participant. We have people from the mental health field, people from the recovery community, people from the treatment industry.
Yeah.
And it gives us the opportunity to basically be all on the same page.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it. And so communication's a big thing, right? Like when we look at each other, if you're watching and you just really need to put an emphasis on what Tucker just said, like when we look at each other as competition, we miss the chance for collaboration.
Right.
And this is about helping people, and it's not about who gets the credit. And so I just hope we continue to build that infrastructure and that network. I want to ask you real quick, what do you see the biggest barriers in for somebody seeking drug treatment in the state of Arkansas, or treatment period?
Couple of things. The first is something that you probably wouldn't expect. This is going to be an uncomfortable answer for some people. But one of the biggest barriers for somebody seeking treatment services is trying to get a treatment center to answer the phone.
Facts. Facts.
And everything.
I'm hanging up. I don't even want to talk. If I'm in that, you got about 15 minutes, Tuck.
Yeah.
When I decide I don't want to get high again because life sucks, you got about 15 minutes to act on that.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to the dope house.
Yeah.
That's it.
We answer the phones at Serenity Park 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when someone is calling looking for help, they're going to get a phone screening, and we're going to begin that process.
Right there.
Right then. We can typically do an admission into our treatment center, even with COVID testing and all that stuff, in 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Not 4 to 6 days that it takes to try to get into some other facilities.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say
they
this.
want you to have that COVID test.
If you're running a treatment center and you don't have staff that answers the phone and is responsive to the needs of the people seeking help, correct that, because I guarantee you if you don't, the marketplace is going to correct it for you.
Ooh, that sounds like notice. Answer your phone or we will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I love it. Serenity Park just put every treatment center on notice. If you don't answer the phone, we'll take your clients.
This is a consumer-driven business. Again, I talk about it all the time. It's retail.
Yeah.
There's an immediate need,
Yeah.
and we have to position ourselves to be able to provide immediate solutions.
Dude, I love it. Like, and my wife and I started a nonprofit several years back that is extremely successful because it's driven by passion. But in starting that and building Next Step Up, one of the things I learned, Tucker, was you can have vision and mission and passion, but without money, it ain't going to do anything.
Right.
If you don't have gas to put in the car, no matter how nice the car is, it don't go.
Yeah.
Tucker, we like to give everybody that comes on the show the last few minutes to just talk to our viewers and the people that'll come. Whatever you want to say, you got about 2 minutes, my man.
Oh my goodness. Really all I want to say is if you are struggling, if you have a loved one are struggling, if you have an employee who is struggling with drug and alcohol use, there's hope. Treatment works, recovery works. Do what you can to engage in that process. You know, that's so important for people to be supportive of the individual who's looking for help. Be persistent, don't give up. If you got a loved one who's struggling, love on them and keep pushing them towards recovery, because once they get it, it's transformative. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Tucker, thank you. You've been a great guest.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for letting me come on the show.
Man,
I'm so grateful.
I enjoy good conversation, so thank you very much. Hey, listen, if you're struggling or if you need help right now and you don't know how to get in touch with somebody, send a message to this page on the Recovery Clinic at Facebook, and we will get somebody to get in touch with you immediately. It may be me, it may be my counterpart Ashley. Somebody will reach out to you and we will get you connected with people like Tucker Martin or Tucker himself. We'll get you the help you need. And so don't waste the resources. We've got funding. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about insurance. Don't worry about these stupid excuses that we tell ourselves. I can't go to treatment and save my life. I'm worried about my dog. We'll find somebody to take care of your dog. Come on and reach out. Hey, see you next Wednesday at 11 a.m.